everybody. This is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on April the 6th in the year of our Lord 2026. And I've got a lot of great information for you here, so let me just go ahead and jump over here to my Rumble channel, Murtech on Rumble. This is the video we're watching tonight, episode 1879. Let me go ahead and jump into this. Alrighty, let me close the live chat, slide down here, and let me give that a thumbs up. Alright, let me click the show more button to expand out the description box. We have information from Dan Bongino, AP for Liberty, Explain America, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give for Holy Sinner, just followed my channel. Donna Marie B333 just started following my channel. Dad Sharky just started following my channel. LSL Darlin just started following my channel. Auntie CC just started following my channel. Mervine 77 just started following my channel. McArbertoro 54 just started following my channel. And B Job Secure just started following me. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Alrighty, let's slide down here. And Debbie BS reposted my episode 1878. Uncloudy HJD Man 2 and Debbie BS commented on my episode 1878. Debbie BS commented on my extra 661A. And Debbie BS commented on my extra 661B. Debbie BS and Cotton Ball commented on my extra 661C. So thank you very much, guys, for comments and following my and reposting my video. I definitely appreciate your support, and I certainly enjoy reading your feedback. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. All right, here we go. Dan Bongino, Leave No Man Behind, episode 2488. Let's see what he has to say.
So, an unbelievable mission this weekend. Folks, this is like storybook stuff, like what happened. We're engaged in this unbelievably successful now, 5, 6 week, 7 week military operation in Iran. We've taken out most of their Navy, good chunk of their ballistic missile capability. We've decimated their air defense sector. However, they do have equipment on the ground that can still obviously take down our airplanes. It's still very dangerous. If yes, we do have air dominance. When you see the amount of sorties and missions they've flown over Iran relative to the amount of enemy contact, like what happened this weekend when they took down an F-15, the percentage is so unbelievably low. That is what air dominance looks like. However, air dominance doesn't mean zero risk. It's not zero risk, okay? We lose this pilot, Good Friday, rescued by Easter Sunday in incredibly what reads like, it's not even like a Netflix show because you believe, that's too much. That's too much. No one's ever going to believe. Well, it happened. It's not a Netflix show. It's real. Pilot was injured, winds up secreting himself into a mountain crevice, stays alive. Special operators go in there. We wind up taking fire in some helicopters. An A-10 takes some fire and showing you we leave no one behind. They were taking out roads. They were jamming signals. They were making sure that no Iranian terrorist got anywhere close to this pilot, and they got him out. It's an incredible story. Here's a quick Fox News hit by Trey Yinks discussing what happened. I want to talk about on the other side is 3 things that enabled this to be possible because there's no other military on earth, none, that could have pulled this off deep in Iranian territory. Check this out.
Yeah, absolutely. This was an incredibly complex operation. I've been speaking with Israeli officials asking what role the Israelis played in this operation, and they continue to just give credit to the American forces, saying that when one pilot in the region is shot down, it's everyone's pilot and job to rescue them. What took place was nothing short of extraordinary. The CIA was using deception tactics on the ground to make the Iranians think that they'd already located the pilot. Remember, this second crew member was inside of enemy territory for almost 48 hours. And the Iranians were not only actively looking for this crew member on the ground, but they were also offering a reward of thousands of dollars to any Iranian civilians who could capture him and then take him into IRGC hands. The United States knew this was taking place. And so as these Iranian forces approached this crew member where they were hiding along a mountain ridge, according to Fox's Jennifer Griffin, there were strikes that took place against the Iranians to not only ensure that these forces couldn't reach the crew member, but also ensure that on the ground they couldn't get forces close to this location. Remember, when these pilots or crew members are ejecting from a plane, they have the systems within them that allow intelligence to track their location, but they have to be very careful, understanding they often just have a sidearm with them and they're not able to defend themselves solely on the ground. But what the president talked about last night in his post on Truth Social was that this crew member was never alone. The United States of America, including the president himself and top military leadership, each and every hour at the White House tracking the location of this crew member and then sending in hundreds of special forces, dozens of U.S. military planes to identify the exact location and ultimately rescue this U.S. service member.
Pretender 2020 in the chat. I'm more concerned about the plane being shot down than the naughty language in the tweet. Yeah, me too. Me too. In my triage of concerns this weekend, over this holy weekend in the Christian calendar, I promise the naughty language in the tweet was not even in the top 100. It was like, hey, we got this guy on the ground, this American patriot pilot. Like, can we just get him out? And like, who cares about the language in the tweet or the True Social post? Who cares? My gosh, we're in like this existential crisis with people trying to acquire nuclear weapons who would love to blow up the United States and destroy a major city. And we're worried about him dropping an F-bomb. Folks, there are three things that enable us to do this. Number one, our ability to intercept and manipulate signals intelligence is just unlike anyone else on Earth. Obviously, the details of it are not for public consumption. You can probably figure it out. It's a well-known secret. We just have the ability to be an eye in the sky and an ear in the sky like no one else. So there's almost nothing you can do. When SIGINT is short for signals intelligence. Most of you know, I don't mean to sound like condescending. Human is human intelligence. There's all kinds of stuff as well. However, when you combine human intelligence on the ground and signals intelligence, basically there's nothing the Iranians can do, very little they can do without us having a good idea in advance when it comes to that rescuing this pilot. So that's number one. That's a staple of U.S. intelligence gathering technology, and it's peerless. It's peerless. We have no equals in it. Combine that with our stealth technology. Now, this was daytime op. We own the night. The United States and the special operators will tell you these guys own the night. They just do. This was a day op, but still, you still want to be able to avoid certain enemy detection systems. We have stealth technology like no one else. We just do. When you combine that with the ability to read intelligence and kind of know what the enemy is doing on the football field, you know it's a run play before the enemy even snaps the football. It's just hard to beat us. Not impossible. I told you, there's still risk in all of this. It's war. And then when you layer on top of that, item number 3, signals intelligence, intelligence in general, stealth technology, and you overlay logistics capabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States has military experience like no one else on earth. I'm not telling you have to agree with every single theater mission we've been in. I certainly was not a supporter of the Iraq War. I've said it many times. However, it is invaluable experience when our people in combat are in combat. I'm rooting for them. That experience matters. I'll never forget, the last year being in government, people, coming in and talking about all kinds of drone technology. And we had this contact at another agency who said, I don't want to hear anything about drone technology unless you've tested it in Ukraine. Because everything you're telling us it's going to do, there's 100 variables on the battlefield you haven't taken into account yet. Well, how do you take into account those variables? You got to get it on the damn battlefield. That's how you get battlefield experience that our military is second to none at. They have the logistics capabilities to do these things, the beans, the bullets, all that stuff, the supply lines. Think about it. They set up basically an airfield in Iranian territory to get this hero pilot out. We got one of our planes stuck. They wound up blowing up, I think it was 2 C-130s, and then replacing them with 3 more. How many people can do that? But it goes to show you the extent to which our United States government and the Trump administration, there's no amount of money or logistics we won't expend to get our people out. We're not the death to America Mullah crowd. They don't give a damn about their people like that. That's us, man. That's us. We are different. American exceptionalism is real. You're different too. You live in the greatest country on earth where we don't treat our people like expendable suicide, homicide, bomber baggage. Oh, kill yourself. We don't do that.
Well, the Democrats will. The Democrats will do that.
These 3 things make a world of difference, and you're going to see moving forward as the operation starts to wrap up likely in the coming weeks or maybe a couple months. I don't know. Again, I'm not in on the war planning, obviously. However, President Trump has been pretty clear that he had a limited set of goals. A lot of those goals have been met. I think we're going to hear today at 1 o'clock some additional guidance going forward. And hopefully we wrap it up relatively soon. Well, what about the Strait? Ladies and gentlemen, the Strait's important. No doubt about it. I get it. The Straits of Hormuz are really important. Global petrochemical traffic, hugely important. However, if our partners, did you see that Ari Fleischer tweet? Sorry, I don't mean to get off topic, but Ari Fleischer used to be the old White House press secretary in the Bush era. Did you see the tweet? It went nuclear this weekend. Everyone was talking about it. Ari Fleischer, who's not known as like a big bomb thrower at all. He's like a Bush era Republican guy, nice enough guy. I know Ari, very nice guy. I don't think we share all the same politics, but he put out this tweet basically saying, hey man, to NATO out there, not helping us out with the Strait, not letting us use airspace and bases we built in your country to keep your country safe. Like, this is it, man. Again, this guy's not a bomb thrower at all, Ari Fleischer, not even like a little bit. If you've ever met him, he's the most calm, level, he doesn't get emotional about anything. He was like, hey, Donald Trump is right about this. These NATO countries that are not helping us out, like, this may be the red line for us. And gave Trump a bit of a pat on the back, suggesting that he's the first one to call out what this is. This is not an alliance anymore. We needed our allies in an alliance. Alliance, allies, and they're not acting like allies. Oh, there you go. I didn't even put it in the show. This is the tweet if you want to see it. It was April 3rd, 6:15 p.m. He basically notes when this is over, Western NATO will never be the same. Spain, England, France, and Italy have sold us out. I'm telling you, like, this is a huge thing for him to put out. He is not a bomb thrower at all. And he's telling you the truth. This is not an alliance if they don't act like allies. And folks, it's about time we started speaking the truth. It's really frustrating when the United States, I haven't seen it on the other side. Like 80% of the heavy lifting in the law enforcement, counterterror, counterespionage space, and in the military space are done by the United States. And what do we get back? We don't even get back 20% of the effort. We get back like no percent of the effort.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. I will include this video in my daily news wrap-up so you'll get to see the rest of it. But yeah, it seems like what he's saying is true, but it only seems like that's really been focused on since Donald Trump got back in office. Don't you think? Pretty amazing. I mean, the United States has always, I never could understand sending this money, foreign aid, over to other countries. And what's it used for? Who's it go to? I mean, are we just paying these people off or what? I don't know. Are we just burdening the taxpayers here, going in debt, paying interest on that debt to the amount of $1 trillion a year in interest that we're paying on that debt so we can send money overseas? If that's not a WTF moment, I certainly don't know what is. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video
Space
does
and
come from Dan Bongino. I am subscribed to his channel. Give him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And nobody wants to chat with me tonight? Was there something I said? Did I upset somebody or somebody pissed off or what? Okay, let's see what, let me close this out. Let's see what AP for Liberty, Austin Peterson, has to say. He had some interesting things. I was listening to his video earlier, and it seems like that's all I do is listen to people's videos. And he had some interesting things to say that I want to share with you because he has a pretty good podcast. Iran rescue miracle. Trump orders daring special ops mission while left spread fake news he was dead. Unfreaking believable. Let's see what he's got to say.
Here we go. Such competence in this administration. One would think that you would see mistakes happen, and certainly it hasn't been a completely flawless job, but it's so nice to see competency in foreign policy. And surprising to me, shocking to hear points of view like this from, I guess, not Senator, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Take a listen to this.
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement.
Yeah.
That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of them's going to have to be reexamined. All of it's going to have to be reexamined. And I've been a big
all
supporter
of the NATO.
of NATO.
Yeah, you
And
have.
one of the
Listen,
reasons
that's Marco Rubio saying that. Thanks for the sub there, Drew Van Runkle. I'm sure Coyote appreciates it too. Those gift subs help other people and they help grow the show. You're amazing. All right, guys, let me ask you something before we get into the news. How many times have you heard this? The middle class is dying. The middle class is being hollowed out. The American dream is over for working families. How many campaign ads, how many primetime speeches, how many grievance-soaked rally moments have been built on that exact sentence? I've heard it from J.D. Vance at firefighter union rallies. I heard it from Joe Biden in 2023 when he stood in front of the cameras and declared that trickle-down economics hollowed out the middle class. And here's what I want you guys to understand this morning. They were all wrong, factually, empirically, demonstrably wrong. And we now have the receipts. The American Enterprise Institute, which is one of the most respected research institutions in this country, published a landmark study this January by economists Stephen Rose and Scott Winship. And what they found should be on the front page of every newspaper in America, but it is not because it does not fit the narrative. So let me give it to you straight. In 1979, Jimmy Carter was still in the White House and the country was in the middle of a gas crisis and double-digit inflation and general American misery. 10% of American families were upper middle class. 10% in 2024, 31%. And disaster. Yes, that's tripled in one lifetime. And here's the number that stopped me cold when I was reading it this weekend. For the first time in American history, for the first time ever, More families now sit above the core middle class threshold than below it. 35% above, 34% below. That has never happened before in the history of this republic. And the poor, the people that we are constantly told we are being left behind and crushed and abandoned, the share of Americans classified as poor or near poor was 30% in 1979. Today, it is 19%. Ouch. Right in the feelings. Adjusted median family income rose 52% over that same period. And get this, even families at the very bottom of the income ladder, the 10th percentile, are nearly 30% better off than they were in 1979. So when Bernie Sanders tells you the system is rigged and the middle class is dying and America is failing its working families, what he's actually doing is describing a country that does not exist. The researchers at AEI put it perfectly. Decrying a shrinking or hollowed out middle class is just a gloomy way of saying the upper middle class has boomed and fewer families are in hardship. Guys, the middle class is shrinking, yes, because people are graduating out of it. They're not falling down, they're climbing up. The doomsellers looked at a nation of climbers and told you they were falling. And they did it because despair is worth more to them than the truth. How do we know this? Well, it's quite financially profitable to prognosticate the West's decline. There's a market for that. Here's the formula that they don't want you to know. Here's where things get interesting, okay? Oh my goodness. I just blew my script there, guys. Way to go. We'll do that live. F it, we'll do it live. Here's where it gets interesting. The data does not tell us that more Americans are wealthy. It tells us exactly how they got there. And the formula is simple. It's the only reason you don't hear about this on cable news is that it would put half of Washington's grievance industry out of business overnight. Here are the three variables that predict whether a family ends up in the upper middle class, okay? Because not one of them is be born rich, okay? First one is education. 55% of people with a bachelor's degree are upper middle class or rich. 68% with a graduate degree. Now, I know what you guys are going to say. College has become it's so expensive. Yes. The student loan system is a disaster, and we do need to have that conversation. But don't let anyone tell you that investing in your own skills and knowledge does not pay off in America. It does. The data says it does. Second, marriage. More than 80% of people in the upper middle class and rich categories are in married or cohabiting households. 80%, two incomes, split costs, pooled savings, shared risks. So the family unit is not a social construct. It's the most effective wealth building mechanism ever devised by human civilization, and it's free. Third, compounding effort over time. So this one doesn't have the catchy name, but it is the most important of all. Let me tell you about a man by the name of Randy Schilling. Randy grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas, went to a public high school, got a petroleum engineering degree from Texas A&M. He got a smart degree. Some of us are all regretting our degrees when we hear about that. Petroleum engineering, I didn't know you could major in that. And good for you. Congratulations, Cecilia, to your upcoming nuptials and your child. So happy to see people I love having kids and get married. You got to make more money. So this guy, Randy, he spent his first decade in an apartment worrying about paying for vacations one day. Then in his early 30s, he took a job that paid 15% more plus bonuses. Promotions came in, pay raises. He bought a house on a golf course in Humble, Texas, saved more than $3 million for retirement. His household brings in $220,000 a year. And you know what he drives? A 2015 Ford F-150. Yeah. I got him beat though, because I got a 2012. You know what he says about himself? Says, I view myself as an average Joe. I don't have to have a fancy car, but when I want something, I go get it. That's nice. Then there's Gabriel Martinez, 34 years old. His father earned less than $40,000 a year working for the state of Texas. Gabriel's first job out of college in 2015 paid $50,000. Today, at 34, he earns $180,000 at a major technology company, plus bonuses and stock compensation. He and his wife paid off more than $100,000 in student loans. They own a home. They tithe 10% of their income to their church. And he said something in the Wall Street Journal I think is the most American sentence I've read in a long time. He said, "I'm very grateful to live in a nation where I don't have to stay where my dad was." Folks, that is it. That is the whole show right there. That sentence is what the left cannot stand. Because if Gabriel Martinez is grateful for America, if he believes that the system worked for him, then he doesn't need Bernie Sanders. He doesn't need Elizabeth Warren. He doesn't need the entire apparatus of grievance and dependency that the Democratic Party has built its last 30 years around. The formula isn't hidden and it's not gate kept. It's not available only to the privileged few. Here it is: education, marriage, compounding effort. The left hates this conversation because the answer to poverty in America is not more government. It's more Gabriel Martinez. Now, why? I know what you're going to say. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Why do you feel broke even when you're not? And who did that to you? Okay. Austin, the data sounds great, but I don't feel wealthy. I feel squeezed. Stephanie was saying this yesterday when I brought up this topic. I hope she's listening. She says, I feel like every time I get a raise, something else comes up and eats it. Okay, you are not wrong to feel that way because there is a paradox sitting at the heart of this story, and it's probably the most important part of this entire segment. Even people who are objectively doing well, people with real money, real savings, real security, are pessimistic about the broader economy. Randy Schilling, $3 million saved, $220,000 a year, house on a golf course, is worried his 23-year-old son won't be able to keep the trajectory going. Laura Shields in New Jersey, $240,000 a year. She lies awake at night worrying about paying for college in 2 years. Chris Wogan grew up in a Philly row house with 7 siblings. Parents could not afford a baseball glove. Now pulls in $175,000 a year in pensions alone. He's taken multiple Viking cruises in Europe, just bought a retirement home with 2 pools, and still considers himself, quote, middle class. So how is it possible, guys, that people are richer than they have ever been and more anxious than they've ever been at the same time? And here's the answer, guys, and I want you to burn this into your memory because this is the key to understanding almost everything wrong with American politics right now. The things that have gotten more expensive, the things that feel genuinely out of reach are not the things that the free market broke. They're the things the government touched: housing, healthcare, higher education. The Wall Street Journal editorial board pointed this out directly. These are the 3 most heavily subsidized and regulated industries in the entire American economy outside of defense. The government poured trillions of dollars into subsidizing college tuition. What happened? Tuition exploded. The government then built a Byzantine regulatory system around healthcare, and premiums exploded. Thanks, Obama. Yeah. The government created zoning laws and then and all of these permitting nightmares and environmental review processes that make it nearly impossible to build housing quickly or cheaply. And what happens? Home prices exploded. And this is the part in this that should make your blood boil. The same politicians who created those conditions stand in front of the cameras and tell you that capitalism has failed you, that the free market is the problem, that you need more government to fix what government broke. It's the greatest con in American political history. And here's the bottom line that I want you guys to carry with you on this topic. We'll revisit it with John Miltimore again at 8 a.m. Central. America is not a nation in decline. America is a nation being pulled by people with a financial interest in your despair that it is in decline. The data doesn't lie. The facts don't care about your feelings. The upper middle class has tripled in one lifetime. The poor are a third fewer than they were in 1979. Median family income is up 52% in real terms. Gabriel Martinez went from a $50,000 starting salary to $180,000 at 34. Chris Wogan went from a Philly row house with 7 kids and no baseball glove to the Viking cruises in Europe. The American dream is not dead. It's not even sick. It's just been buried under 50 years of political propaganda by people who need you to believe it's dead so that you will keep voting for them. Wake up.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. But yeah, that's great information. I wanted to share that with you, just to let you know how it is. Life. We're being lied to so much. Everything's horrible. Now that Donald Trump's in office, but when Biden was in there wrecking everything, everything was wonderful. It's the Democrats and the mainstream media that are continually trying to destroy this country, making you think, oh, everything's wonderful. Except when, like I say, Donald Trump gets in and starts fixing stuff. Then, everything's bad. It's just the opposite of what they're telling you. All right, let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from AP for Liberty, Austin Peterson. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Alrighty, let's jump back here. And then Cloudy and Foxy Grandma join me in the chat. So anybody else want to jump in there? By all means. It's wide open. Okay, Explain America. Supreme Court stuns rogue judge. 5-4 ruling sends left into tailspin. That doesn't take much, does it? Okay, let's share this one out.
Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. Well, a rogue judge has been shot down yet again. He overstepped his bounds and tried to act like the president of the United States and was put back in his place. And this ruling just goes to show once again that Trump is beating his opponents in court over and over again whenever it reaches the appellate level. So these rogue judges, they are acting just as obstructionists. Unfortunately for this judge, he was batted down. But before we get into this story, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, the Supreme Court has a lot on its plate nowadays. We've gone into a lot of the bigger cases, such as the birthright citizenship case. And of course, ahead of us, we have the Voting Rights Act case. And those two should have a massive influence on the fate of this nation. But the Supreme Court quietly issued a decision on its shadow docket that has a lot of the left-wing unions scrambling. They are really upset because it reinforces Trump's authority to decide what policies are implemented in the executive branch. After all, Trump was the one who was elected to be president, not any of these judges, not the heads of these teachers' unions, not any of these activist groups. No, it was President Trump who won the election decisively, not just the popular vote, but also every major swing state. So a major shift in policy was desired by a majority of voters in the last election. That is the bottom line, whether the lamestream media likes it or not. Now, the Supreme Court has essentially rubber-stamped Trump's policy of ending DEI in the federal government. And the Supreme Court on Friday afternoon put a hold on an order by a federal judge in Massachusetts that would have required the shuttered, for the most part, Department of Education to reinstate more than $65 million in grants that had terminated last February because they funded programs that included diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. But of course, that is all just a catchphrase that has nothing to do with what it's all about, and that is discrimination against other Americans. Now, in an unsigned 3-page opinion, a majority of the court explained that the government likely would not be able to get the funds back once they were dispersed. Moreover, the majority added that the recipients of the funds would not be permanently harmed if the funds are withheld while the litigation continues. Now, the vote was 5-4, and the Chief Justice, John Roberts, indicated that he would have denied the government's request. So, can you guess who dissented? Well, first of all, we have Justice Elena Kagan, who dissented, calling the court's ruling a mistake. And our favorite Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, in an opinion joined by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, also dissented, writing that it was, quote, beyond puzzling that a majority of the justices conceive of the government's application as an emergency, unquote. Well, going to someone that just says, I don't understand over and over and over again, that's not a huge surprise. Well, at issue in the case are 2 grant programs intended to address a nationwide shortage of teachers. The Department of Education canceled all but 5 of the 109 grants after reviews found objectionable diversity and equity training material in the recipient programs, aka propaganda and brainwashing. So 8 states, led by California, filed a lawsuit in federal court in Massachusetts in early March. They argued that universities and nonprofits in their states had received grants through the programs, and that the Department of Education had violated the federal law governing administrative agencies when it ended those grants. A federal district judge issued the temporary order that required the government to reinstate the grants. I mean, this is cuckoo. And that it terminated in the states bringing the lawsuit. And that was U.S. District Judge Myung Jun, who prohibited the government from implementing other terminations of those states. Kind of obvious. You can just tell by the judges' names nowadays how they're going to rule for the most part. Well, here's the thing with all of this. It's a good thing that the Department of Education has been closed. I mean, Ronald Reagan wanted it shuttered permanently, and Trump has accomplished nearly all of that quietly just by shutting everything down. And he deserves some credit for that win for the American people because, quite frankly, it has turned into a giant slush fund that has nothing to do with improving education of students in this country, which is the litmus test of whether a policy is successful or not. Now, a recent analysis said red states spend $14,000 per pupil, and blue states spend $21,000 per pupil. And yet, the test scores are virtually the same. So can you guess the biggest overpayers during this analysis? Well, DC has an extra $15,000 a student. New York has $12,000 a student. Vermont has an extra $10,000 a student. New Jersey, an extra $10,000, and Connecticut, an extra $8,000 student. Again, zero results difference, period. And so according to the analysis, 19 best value states are 19 for 19 Trump voting states. So it turns out that red state voters care about how their money is being spent, while blue states, well, the money disappears into a black hole that goes to teachers' unions and activist groups and NGOs and allies of the Democratic Party. And it's a massive fraud scheme, just like we saw with Minnesota and California and New York and New Jersey and Maryland, all the rest of them. It's a giant fraud scheme in most of these states wherever Democrats gain single party control. So that's just something that should be apparently obvious to anyone in this country. So if you work for a living and you care about how your taxpayer dollars are spent, do not elect Democrats to run your state. It is virtually suicidal on your budget and for any kind of efficiency when it comes to education or any other aspect of the economy. So weigh in with your thoughts about this story. What do you think about the Supreme Court ruling and Trump once again being proved to be actually the president of the United States? I mean, you could blow me away with a feather. It seems like the president is actually the president. Wow, what a Supreme Court ruling. Well, thanks again for watching, and please like, share, and comment. We always appreciate you at Explain America.
So I guess I am looking at your position in this case, and it boils down to requiring us to do at least these two things. One is believe that the framers were not importing the common law rule and understanding of birthright citizenship. And the second is to believe that what they were doing was departing from that common law rule in the way that you suggest. That is, they were seeking to have this turn on domicile. I think you have a number of hurdles to accomplish those two things. One of which I think is that when we look at this court's case law, and no one I think has mentioned Schooner's Exchange, but it appears that that was an 1812 case in which it seems as though the court had already accepted at the time of the ratification of the 14th Amendment that the allegiance that you were talking about was the English common law rule. That, in other words, allegiance meant that you are covered by the laws of the jurisdiction, that you can rely on that jurisdiction's protection. That's what allegiance meant. Now, you're saying today, no, allegiance meant something about loyalty or that kind of idea. But if the Supreme Court had, prior to the 14th Amendment, established that allegiance meant the common law definition, I think your first hurdle is to help us understand why we would believe that when the 14th Amendment was ratified, the the framers weren't just incorporating what we had previously said it meant.
Page 572 of the Congressional Record directly addresses this. They say the concept of temporary and local allegiance from the Schooner Exchange is what is meant by, or temporary and local jurisdiction from the Schooner Exchange is what is meant by the word jurisdiction in the 14th Amendment. Senator Trumbull says, I thought about saying owing allegiance, but again, quote, there's a sort of allegiance from persons temporarily resident in the United States whom we have no right to make citizens. So he expressly and consciously rejected reliance on Schooner.
What do we do?
All right, crazy. Unbelievable. Oh, the Supreme Court. All right, this video does come from Explain America. This is a video I've shared with you. I've given them a thumbs up. I am subscribed to their channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, Susie Poll, 2016. Thanks for joining us. All right, let me close this out here, slide down here, and see what Wendy Bell has to say is all hell will rain down. Okay, let's check it out and see what that's all about. All right, this video starts.
You know, I think the world is almost shell-shocked. And they're shell-shocked, which they twist into hatred for Donald Trump. They are completely mesmerized, gobsmacked, left speechless, literally don't know how to behave. When the president comes out over the weekend and he's like, look, you effing crazy bastards, if you don't stop fiddling around with the straight, I'm going to blow your country into the middle of next week. Tomorrow is Bridges and Power Plants Day. Literally, this is what the president tweets out. After this remarkable rescue mission where no man is left behind, this, ladies and gentlemen, 100% makes Donald Trump diametrically opposed to every single other president of this modern era. He tells you exactly what he's going to do. He tells you why he's going to do it. He doesn't tell you when, but he gives you rough estimates. Then he surprises you, because if you don't do that, you're an idiot. And then he goes in, fulfills the mission, gets everybody out without people getting killed, and moves along and says, I told you I would, I did, next, please. People don't know how to deal with that. Do you want to know why Democrats are so inside out, upside down? You've got a crybaby weakling culture that gravitates primarily to the Democratic Party, this party of feelings, of identity, of social oddness, of everything that's weird, that's wrong for you, and tragic for your family. They're behind. And they attract these people who are, first of all, extraordinarily insecure. It takes a very strong individual to stand up to a crowd and to say, I don't think so. I'm not going to go along with that. I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to walk out and leave right now. Democrats and this soft, mushy group of militant whack jobs who follow the party, who associate with, this is their new identity. This is their religion. This is their belonging, which is why you and I, as common sense conservatives, them sadly, commonly with pity, and see very clearly their sanctimonious do-goodery of idiocy. Everything they say they're going to do is completely ill thought of. It is ill prepared. It costs more than it should. It takes longer than anybody imagined. And there's never a bottom line benefit to you or to me. President Trump says, we're going to go in. What's going on is wrong. I'm going to tell you, I want it to change. I'm going to give you an opportunity to fix it. When you don't take my opportunity, I'm going to bomb the crap out of you. And we're going to start perhaps a little small. We're going to destroy a bridge that you spend a lot of time and money on. That's the teaser, beezer, appetizer. Because what comes tomorrow will be complete obliteration that is going to pain President Trump to call the shot for. He doesn't want to destroy the country. He doesn't want to dismantle every single thing. He doesn't want the Iranian people knocked back into the Stone Age, but he wants the leadership to cease and desist and to be destroyed, to cut the head off the snake, to dig out all of the fibers of the cancer, to excise the cancer, radiate it so the crab can never come back. Yes, all while building a force field over the United States and our friendly neighbors here in the Western Hemisphere who are tired of being trifled with. The Democrats don't know how to deal with that. 13 U.S. service members have died since Operation Epic Fury took place, starting last month. 13. 6 of them were killed in Kuwait when Iran launched an attack on the base. A 7th died similarly in Saudi Arabia. 6 others died in that not Iranian-caused tanker crash. 13. President Trump was there on the phone. The president was there grieving as those heroes' bodies were transferred. Donald Trump. He managed to call perhaps one of the most outrageous, ballsy, bold, daring, nutty, 100% made in the USA rescue operation over the weekend. The Democrats don't know what to do. They don't have leaders. They don't have people with character. They lost their morality. They sold off to the wacko wing of the party and are now ensconced in some oatmeal of alphabet soup, rainbow stew nonsense as this president is making the world safer. Promises made, promises kept. Now let me ask you, do you not believe him when he says the American age, the golden age, is at our fingertips, is at the doorstep? We are right there. Do you doubt him? Because you ought not. Democrats are victim of their own mealy-mouthed, spineless, wishy-washy, nothing, groupthink, loserness. Okay? It's very easy to stand up when you've got the media running interference for you. It's easy to stand up and point fingers when you've got the establishment deep state usually behind you. It's easy to resist when you've got a lot of paid-for protesters creating problems and smoke screens down on the street. It's a whole different ballgame to stand up, one individual with billions of people watching, and to say, no man gets left behind. That is a leader. We haven't had one for about, 4 years? It is so nice to have him back. So here's where we stand today, ladies and gentlemen, as the president is set to have a press conference with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. It's going to begin here in about 45 minutes, allegedly in the White House press briefing room. We're going to bring you that press conference live. I believe we're going to get news at that press conference that's going to tell us one of two things. Iran has agreed to our stipulations, our 15-point plan, and we will withhold our offensive to knock out every part of their electrical grid, their water treatment plants, their oil transportation processes, every bridge, every freaking piece of machinery. We will wait for that blessed ink to hit the paper. Or, watch out. Watch out. That is what I love about being an American today. Being on the right side allows you to see all of the other people and why they aren't with us. On today's program, we're going to talk also about the UFO stuff going on. You can't get away from it. People out there are saying, I just think this is a smokescreen. It's really not going on. Oh, it's been going on. And it's been going on for, I'm going to say, more than 100 years. This isn't just something that people started seeing in the 1950s or 60s, dating all the way back to the earliest 1900s, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about what the government knows and what the American people demand to be filled in on. All of that and so much more coming up next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right. Well, let's get this up here and see what she has to say. Great information. I tell you what, she definitely puts things in the proper perspective, don't you think? All right. Rumble seems to be lagging here a little bit.
And then he calls people. Can you imagine?
Let me back it up just a hair here. Oh, I hate it when Rumble does this. I mean, I ran a...
Huevos.
Here we go.
Ho, 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 it's magic.
Finally.
You know.
Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program. You know, I kind of think that having President Trump now, after what we went through with COVID, with the tyrannical mandates, with the blue state leadership of absolute insanity, of edicts and emergency orders and little people getting big dictatorial huevos, I think we're all almost numb. We're so used to ineffective, inefficient, outrageously expensive, without the benefits government, that when somebody comes forward and says what President Trump says, the things that he tweets, the words that he uses, the direct way in which he communicates with us, he directly talks to you every single day, whether you choose to follow his accounts on social media or not. He absolutely carves out the media. And then he calls people. Can you imagine this? You couldn't even see Joe Biden, but what? 20 times a year he was in his chamber, trotting off to the beach on vacation, doing whatever the hell he was doing. He not only didn't talk to the media, he sure as hell wasn't phoning them on Easter freaking Sunday saying, hey, Trey Yingst, Fox News, I want to tell you what's going on, lest there be any confusion. Says some of the things off the record. Most of it on, and you're going to hear all about it coming up. Let's see what the president said about this miraculous rescue of these two U.S. service members missing after Iran shot down a fighter jet, and the incredible special forces operation to get these guys back. President Trump Sunday made expletive-laden new threats to escalate strikes on Iran and its infrastructure if it doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz by his deadline, after American forces rescued an aviator whose Iran-downed plane fell behind enemy lines. An intense search followed Friday's crash of the F-15E Strike Eagle, while Iran was promising a bounty reward for the enemy pilot, offering what, 60 grand or whatever, triggering, I'm sure, very interested parties. President Trump said that the service member was seriously wounded and really brave, rescued from, quote, deep inside the mountains in an operation involving dozens of armed aircraft. He said a second crew member was rescued in broad daylight within hours of the crash. A senior U.S. administration official said that prior to locating the pilot, the CIA had spread word inside Iran that U.S. forces had found him and were moving him for exfiltration, getting him out of the country, confusing Iranian officials. They're like, what? So they're scrambling for this operation, right? And while that's going on, of course, they're rescuing this gentleman who was armed with what? A beacon to alert the CIA and a pistol. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. A defiant Iran struck infrastructure targets in neighboring Gulf Arab countries, challenged the U.S. account of the rescue, and threatened to restrict another heavily used waterway in the region. In a social media post, Trump vowed to hit Iran's power plants and bridges. Let me just read it to you. I'll bring it up here. It's pretty amazing. He was talking about the rescue here before he said, you know what, if Iran doesn't sign on the dotted line, we will tomorrow. It'll be bridges and, power plant day. This is what President Trump said. We've rescued the seriously wounded, really brave F-15 crew member officer from deep inside the mountains of Iran. The Iranian military was looking hard in big numbers and getting close. He is a highly respected colonel. This type of raid is seldom attempted because of the danger to man and equipment. It just doesn't happen. The second raid came after the first one, where we rescued the pilot in broad daylight. Also unusual, spending 7 hours over Iran. An amazing show of bravery and talent by all. I'll be having a news conference with the military at the Oval Office. They changed it since he wrote this. Monday, 1 p.m. God bless our great military warriors. Think about the difference between this president calling this extraordinarily dangerous and politically, imperiled decision to not just go in after the guy they couldn't find, but to go in heavy, to go in with hundreds of people, all for one guy. No man, no American ever left behind. And then you juxtapose that with the Abbey Gate tragedy. 13 U.S. service members killed, 170 others also blown to freaking smithereens, 180 others wounded. Their lives forever changed. And Joe Biden, when he was president, made the families of those 13 U.S. service members wait so he could catch a nap on the tarmac and then watch his watch as their coffins were transferred. Very different commander, very different agendas, very different political parties, very different messages to America, a very different view of hope and prosperity, a very different leader. And you have a Democrat Party that has no idea how to respond, because simply resisting, when what you're resisting is American exceptionalism, makes you just a two-bit traitor in my mind. God is good, said the gentleman they found. They went in with special forces to rescue. First words out of his mouth on Easter Sunday. God is good. Amen. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, President Trump threatens to rain hell down upon Iran if his deadline tomorrow, which would be on 4/7, isn't met. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, number 47. Okay, I'm going to have to correct Wendy Bell here. She said the Democrats don't know how to respond. Yes, they do. They respond with lies, bullshit, propaganda. That's how they respond. But they certainly can't respond with the truth. That's for sure. Okay, let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, I'm going to jump back here. And there we go. All right, so let me go ahead and copy in these chats. There we go. Because I know I replied to Susie Poll 2016. Copy that in. slide down here and put it in a comment. Boom. There we go. So now the live chats are a permanent part of this video. Let me remind you folks that these videos that I did share with you I have come directly from the producers. I have the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as a link to the producer's channel, so if you want to go there and check out more information. These videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted here on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic and truth videos. No nonsense, common sense, logic and truth. That's what I'm pushing here. Now I'd like to share all this information with you, but unfortunately I don't have the time to do so. And that's why I've put together my Mertech Daily News Wrap-Up. Right here's the video from Wendy Bell. We're going to share that with you after I take a break. We take a break. Also the one from Dan Bongino. Says I have 25 videos in here, about 11 hours worth of great information. And I hope you don't miss it. But go ahead and take a break while I get this set up in Rumble Studio. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a beer, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 minutes. And so I can get this set up in Rumble Studio, and we'll get this going for you. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you later, and may God bless. And in the meantime, I want to go ahead and share some information about Rumble Wallet before I completely sign off.
They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters more now than ever.
Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Designed for patriots who stand tall, this cap captures the enduring spirit of liberty. The Liberty Bell stands proud. This isn't a credit line they can shut off, it's your wallet, permanently. Yours to protect your future.
Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference.
This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet, permanently. Yours to protect your future. Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom.